In the famous words of Canadian sci-fi and fantasy author Sharon J. Zhao, have you ever seen a season of a TV show that pissed you off so badly you had to make a whole YouTube channel just to roast it? Yeah, we are channeling that energy today. Hi, my name is Matthew Belak, and I finally started my YouTube channel. You might know me as Belak Boy on TikTok, it's Belak Boy on Twitter, Belak_Matt_ on Instagram, or you might not know me at all. For those of you who don't, I am a content creator that talks all things World of Wonder and Drag Race, especially that of Drag Race outside of the US. And for my first video ever, we have a big one. Today, we are talking about Drag Race España 3. I don't have to be the one to tell you that at one point in the past, Drag Race España was the one. Season 1 of the show was lightning in a bottle. Nobody saw it coming. Drag Race España premiered on May 30th, 2021, so it fell kind of like squarely in the middle of when Drag Race really started to ramp up its global domination. And up until this point, we had gotten quite a few international drag races, but none of the premiere seasons of those franchises were this good. You know, Thailand 1 and UK 1 were pretty good, Holland 1 and Canada 1 were kind of rocky, and then Down Under 1, we don't even have to talk about that one. But España 1 really stood head and shoulders above the premiere seasons of all the other franchises. It was an invigorating watch. But after the season finished, there was kind of like a morbid curiosity for its follow-up. Would the second season really be able to live up to the success of the first? España 1 might have been a fluke, so let's see how España 2 turns out. And then the franchise does the impossible. They capture lightning in a bottle again. España 2 knocks it out of the park. Not only did they somehow bring the same energy that España 1 did, they somehow exceeded it. The queens brought an equal caliber of talent to their season as the España 1 queens did. The judges and production seemed to reciprocate that and rewarded them all for their efforts. The energy was, simply put, radiating. España 2 was something special, and the whole fandom knew it. Without long, people started to herald Drag Race España as, quote, the new crown jewel of the Drag Race kingdom. Many fans announced this franchise as the best there was because not only did it have one spectacular season, it had two. I was definitely part of the zeitgeist. At one point in time, España was the best international franchise. It's hard to even objectively deny that, let alone subjectively. And so when season 3 was officially announced for casting, we all had high expectations. And when casting spoilers started to leak about the season, it seemed that it was going to meet those expectations. I'm not a spoiler girly, I'm not a Reddit girly. I don't read spoilers, but I keep my ears open to certain facts about a season that's going to come out. For example, I knew that it was going to be a 13-person cast, the second largest international season to do that, only behind Thailand 2. I knew that they were bringing back the pork chop from season 1, something that I don't think has happened outside of the US, and I also knew that there was going to be a comeback challenge, another thing that I don't think has happened outside of the US, if you don't count the mini challenge in Sverige. And when the cast reveal officially happened, it only stoked the fires of excitement. This promo had budget, sets, multiple shoots, angles, promotional material. Production-wise, it was one of the best promos we have ever seen. In short, everything about España 3 seemed to promise big things. And, you know, I was realistic, as well as many other fans, I think. We recognized that it is tough to achieve the level of greatness that España 1 and España 2 achieved. We hoped that España 3 would reach those heights and that it would be great, but I was ready to accept that it could just be a good season. And we didn't think it was going to be this bad. The season was, without a doubt, a franchise low. Hell, a series low. Not in a long time have I seen a season of Drag Race flop this hard. Let it be known that I am filming this video before the finale has even aired, so my knowledge of the outcome of the season is still incomplete. But there is very, very little room for the season to recover before the finale. And it seems that a lot of people agree. As you can see from this chart from IMDb, a lot of fans and critics felt the same way. Almost half of the episodes of season 3 fell below a 6 rating. And obviously we have to consider how much of these ratings are review bombers pissed off by the results of the franchise, but it can still be a general idea of how people felt throughout the season. And the fans are smart. We recognize when there is a notable dip in quality, especially for a brand that is as big as Drag Race, because we know what good Drag Race looks like. And this, sadly, isn't it. And I can tell you personally that it just left me thinking, what happened? So this video is going to be about that. I'm going to talk about a franchise that was once the crown jewel of the RuPaul cinematic universe, really going through one of the worst fumbles in history. And I'll try my best to explain what I think didn't work and reflect on how it can be improved in the future. Now, before I go any further, I do want to emphasize that the criticisms I have come specifically from a production and judging standpoint. Nothing I say has to do with the contestants and their talent. España 3's cast is full of talented, unique, and exciting artists. But the season they competed in is riddled with production flaws that I think have really done these contestants a huge disservice. I will be specifically mentioning a few contestants, not to call them out or their talents, but to use them as sort of case studies to pinpoint where production and judging went wrong. Just wanted to get that out there so you all know where I'm coming from. One of the first things that we should get out of the way is the obvious favoritism that production and judges had employed throughout the season. And let me be clear, it is Drag Race. We know favoritism has always been and always will be a thing with this show. However, favoritism works best when it is used gracefully. Saving a queen from lip syncing every now and then, just nudging a queen to a win, writing storylines to better present their favorites without making it too obvious they're pushing the audience to root for them. Those things we have come to expect after, 15 years of Drag Race? Drag Race España was not graceful. The favoritism this season was incredibly obvious, not subtle in the slightest. We can, of course, talk about how Pitita was treated. Let it be clear that I think Pitita is very talented. She did finish the season with 4 wins, and I agree with those wins, to be honest with you. However, it seemed that early on, the producers, the judges, whomever, had picked Pitita to be their winner. And at one point, they didn't want her to have any competition at all. Drag Race España is known for its winners that steamroll the competition, Carmen Farala and Sharon. And I think they wanted to capture that energy again for season 3. And Pitita was the one to do it. And I'm not saying this is like a pre-season conspiracy where they were casting and they said, Pitita is our winner. No, I think that early on in the season, production noticed that Pitita was really delivering in challenges and seemed to be central in a lot of narratives in the workroom. Her rivalries with Visa and Pink CHADORA, for example. And they decided to put their money on her. And that's fine. That is nothing that is foreign to us on Drag Race. The problem is that Pitita, for a good portion of the season, had virtually no competition at all. If we look back to Carmen and Sharon, both did dominate their seasons, but in terms of track records, both had very fierce competition in the finale. Carmen with Killer Queen and Sagittaria, 2 strong fan favorites with good track records, and Sharon with Estrella and Venedita, both of whom had 2 wins, the latter of which was in the top 5 times. My point is, yes, the winners of season 1 and season 2 seemed like the obvious choice, but there were levels throughout the season where competitors pulled ahead and made us question, if those 2 might lose the crown. Pitita didn't have that. To kind of illustrate my point, let's look at episodes 9 and 8. To kind of illustrate my point, let's look at episodes 8 and 9 as an example. In episode 8, it's the top 6. Bestia goes home. That means we go into episode 9 with a top 5, and only 2 of the queens left have at least 1 challenge win. And Pitita has 4. Vanya, the only other competitor at this time that had a win, only had 1. Also, side note, depending on who you ask, Kelly Rolser... Side note, depending on who you ask, Kelly Roller also can be considered to have a win, but I don't count that for similar reasons why I don't count Trixie having a win for the makeover on season 7. Anyways, Pitita was just leagues ahead of everyone, and there wasn't really anyone left that had a track record that could really stir a threat to Pitita. And once again, that is outside of her control. It's because production kept eliminating frontrunners left and right for a while there. I talked briefly about this on TikTok, and there was somebody who left a very interesting comment that kind of summed it up, and I'd like to read it to you. Quote, It's one thing to have a clear frontrunner. It's another thing for only one person to have any competitive momentum at all. So, yeah. Luckily, at the very tail end of the season, Vanya was able to pick up 2 challenge wins and pose a threat to Pitita. I love Pitita. She is one of my favorites throughout the whole season. But Pitita is best when she has active threats throughout the season. And like I said, I am filming this before the finale even airs, so it's very possible that Pitita won't win. But even with or without her winning, this was one of the experiences watching España 3. Is this in frame? No. Maybe? I don't know. Can you see my cheap microphone? One of the other experiences that kind of falls under the umbrella of favoritism is more of a dual topic concerning Pink CHADORA and Kelly Roller. I'm going to kind of combine the judging of these two because I think that in both instances, the judging kind of had a similar flaw. Pink CHADORA, for example, was given the challenge win for the Chanel dance challenge on episode 2. Keep that in mind. Dance challenge. The judges told her specifically, and I quote, "You didn't dance, still your performance was the best." Okay, noted. Kelly Roller, on the other hand, was in the bottom 3 for the makeover in episode 9. However, she was declared safe. During critiques, Javi Ambrosi said, and I quote, "I'm learning how to love you with your imperfections." And then during deliberations, he said, and I quote again, "I defend Kelly a lot because I stand for having a laugh with it, of not getting caught up in every little detail, the precision of the dress, this, that." Do you see kind of where the flaws arise? In both cases, the judges were making excuses for the imperfections of these contestants displayed during the challenge, to either save them from a lip sync or perhaps give them a win. And you know, that is fine, as long as you keep it consistent throughout all contestants. Not picking and choosing to whom you can say, it's okay if you're flawed because we love you. You cannot excuse imperfection from some people when you expect perfection from others. And keep that statement in mind, because let me segue into the crux of this video, the mistreatment of Clover Bish. Yeah, we could not talk about España 3 without talking about this. There were many queens that were mistreated on España 3, pushed aside so that production can play favorites. Visa and Pitita are strong examples, but I and most of the rest of the internet think that the most notable example is Clover Bish. Clover Bish, more than anyone, was treated the harshest this season. I'm sorry, but I will not be taking any opposing arguments on that. It's just an objective fact. And this just was really difficult to watch. The favoritism made things hard, but the active dismissal of Clover made it nearly impossible. I have 3 specific examples that I would like to talk about to illustrate this point. For the first, let's round back to the episode 2 dance challenge. Clover is a dancer, and it shows in this challenge. She absolutely kills the choreography. And, you know, she might have missed a step or two here and there, but she was the clear standout. Then when the judges announced the winner, she didn't win. The win, like we discussed, went to Pink CHADORA. However, the judges specifically call out Clover to explain to her why she didn't win the challenge. They told her that she is a dancer, so they expected her to do great, but they were disappointed. However, they didn't say what about the dancing they were disappointed in. I'm sure they did while filming, but we as an audience didn't get to see that. And they chose to only show the judges dissecting her runway. So it just leaves me speculating what about the dancing they didn't care for. Was it because she missed a step? If that's the case, then that's kind of what I'm talking about when I say you cannot expect perfection from some while excusing imperfections from others. They expected Clover to be perfect, but they rewarded somebody who wasn't. If Clover missing a step costs her the challenge, how does Pink not dancing at all win her it? We should have known. We should have known right then and there that this season was going to be something. The next moment that I want to cite for Clover's mistreatment is during the Rusical El Mago Prec Oz, the Wizard of Oz, essentially. I don't speak Spanish, I am sorry. In this episode, the queens were given the roles that they were going to play by Supreme. They did have a quote-unquote audition for the parts in front of Supreme and some other casting directors, you know, like the person who wrote the music for the show, the person who wrote the dialogue, etc., etc. The audition isn't important though, because we have to keep in mind that the roles that each queen was given were completely out of their control. It was given at the discretion of Supreme and I guess the casting directors. Clover was given the part of Doro, and she was put in the bottom. She lip-synced, right? The critiques she were given, though, were misguided, in my opinion. From what we saw in the critiques, the judges cited that they wanted her to excel in the dancing. They know that she's a great dancer, so they wanted to, quote, fall in love with her. What I want to emphasize is, 1, Clover was given a role that she did not get to choose. So, she didn't have the opportunity to examine which roles might best suit her abilities to really excel in this challenge. 2, this is a pre-choreographed show. That means it was out of Clover's control what choreography she was given. The part of Doro, as you'll notice if you rewatch the musical, had very few dancing segments. In fact, I think only one at the very end of the ensemble. Most of her role was standing around while other people sang and danced. So it's kind of shitty if the only argument you have for a queen being in the bottom is that they didn't meet your expectations of what their dancing should have been when they were given and did not choose a part that had little to no dancing. And the worst of it is that they kept insisting, you are a dancer. We know you are a dancer, so why didn't you dance? This is what I'm talking about. They expected 110% unapologetic, absolute perfection from Clover at all times. And then when she didn't meet that 110%, the judges honed in on her and treated her more harshly than anyone else. I do think that Clover should have been in the bottom for the musical, but the reasons that the judges cited to put her there were dumb. They were dumb and unforgiving, to be honest with you. And the final thing I want to cite is a brief one, just kind of like a personal gripe I have. It comes from the Un Dos Drags challenge in episode 8. The queens competed in pairs, like just a normal teams challenge. At the very beginning of the episode, Supreme said, and I quote, the maxi challenge will be won by the couple that the jury finds funniest. Now, according to my understanding, couple means 2, right? So I'm thinking that the challenge is going to be won by 2 people. In this episode, Clover and Pitita were a pair, and they get the best critiques. And if Supreme said that the best couple will win, why did only Pitita win? Like, that was just 100% production rescinding on their word. And to me, it just seems that they were actively trying not to give Clover a win. They didn't want to reward her in any way. And that's just not cool. And then for the judges to just unceremoniously eliminate her one episode later, Clover will go down as one of the most mistreated queens in Drag Race history. And if you disagree, I'm sorry, tell it to your mother. I guess to sum up, the problem here is inconsistency. The judges and production seem to pick and choose when they cared about certain things. Drag Race works best when there is a sense of consistency, when favoritism is at a minimum, and dare I say, when critiques make sense. I do want to remind you all that yes, I did mention 4 specific queens in this video to highlight my points, but remember that I am talking specifically from a production and judging standpoint. What the judges say and do are completely out of the queen's control, so please do not send them any hate whatsoever, and please do what you can to support them all and their careers. Follow them on Instagram, shout them out on Twitter. Thank them for sharing their art with us. Oh, I touched my hair. I shouldn't have touched my hair. Oh well. But with that in mind, I do want to congratulate the España 3 contestants and thank them so much for sharing their art with us. And Clover Bish, if you ever watch this, this is for you. If you ever go on a North American tour, please let me know. I want to see you live so bad because I love you so much. This, I guess, was just one long-winded way for me to say that Drag Race España 3 was a flop. Were there good things? Absolutely. The talent show, though not as remarkable compared to season 2, was still spectacular and really showed off the budget of the show and the talent of the queens. The lip syncs this season were by far the best collection of lip syncs in Drag Race España history. On top of that, the runways were very good every episode. Notable standouts were Bestia, Visa, and Pitita. And speaking of Visa being absolutely on fire in Untucked, the episode that she eliminated, was iconic and probably my favorite moment this entire season. I just really wish that Drag Race España returns to form. I hope it returns to that level of greatness that we once knew, whether it be through All Stars or through season 4. But before I go, please just remember, I'm only a gay person talking on the internet.